Sit here by my side, cast aside for a moment the burden of shifting goals, the pressure for results and the uncertainties that never cease. Breathe with me and allow your soul to find shelter in the wisdom I left in Ecclesiastes and in my words. Wise man, today I want to speak to you as if I were King Solomon himself, to touch your heart as one who speaks to his closest friend when the city falls silent and the spirit seeks meaning. I know weariness, the weight of long days and repeated tasks, and I know what it is to look at tomorrow without certainty and at yesterday without rest. In Ecclesiastes chapter 1 verse 8, I described a weariness that the eyes do not satisfy and that the ears do not fill. And at the end of the book in Ecclesiastes chapter 12 verse 13, I summarized everything this way. In sum I say, fear God and keep his commandments. Today we will walk together between these two passages to reveal to you the deep principle of wisdom I recorded in the scriptures, and that can forever change your perception of life and strengthen your Christian walk. We will pass through Ecclesiastes, yes, but also through Proverbs and the Song of Songs, and not merely to read, but I will delve into each verse with you, so that you feel as if you were with me while I unroll the scroll and explain each line. And we will take brief pauses for prayer, so that understanding becomes life within you. Therefore, I must warn you, it is very likely that your mind will try to make you leave this video. Perhaps it is already doing so now. I will bring reflections that may make you question beliefs and paradigms in order to open your heart to a new and truer path before God. But your mind has been automatically programmed to fear the new. So breathe deeply and stop jumping from one video to another, and stay with me for a few more moments for what I will reveal. Here, there will be the word, there will be truth, there will be the explanation of what the way of a wise and God-fearing man is. To begin, allow me to pray for you. Lord, God of all wisdom, now align the mind and heart of those who listen to me. Grant discernment to hear your voice and courage to obey. Give rest to the weary soul and direction to hesitant feet. May every decision be illuminated by your will, and may work, money, and relationships find order under your lordship. We ask you in faith, and we rest because you are good. Amen. If you already feel that this is the journey you need, write in the comments, "The fear of the Lord is my guide." And take this moment and like this video so that this word reaches more wise men who need direction. And subscribe to the channel so that you are always with me in my daily counsel here on YouTube. This is not just a gesture on the screen, it is a sign of commitment to the wisdom God has brought to you at the right time. When everything feels like chasing the wind, we live in days where everything demands haste, where every morning begins with a new target, a new deadline, a new demand. And yet, deep in the heart, something remains untouched. The feeling of running in circles, spinning on an invisible treadmill without truly arriving anywhere. The God-fearing man realizes sooner or later that not all productivity brings progress, and that not every outward achievement is a synonym of inward prosperity. Therefore, we must begin this conversation with an honest diagnosis. There is a void hidden behind many efforts. There is a noise that not even the greatest prophets can silence. And there is a kind of weariness that neither vacations nor bonuses nor praise can cure. Its name is a mismatch of meaning. And wise man, listen carefully. Scripture does not remain silent before this reality. Ecclesiastes is not a book of empty laments, but of profound lucidity. It is as if I, Solomon, went back to the starting point of my journey and said, everything you call success, if it does not have the fear of the Lord as its axis, it will be sand in your hands. I want to begin by reading what I wrote in the first chapters of this book, where I observed with attentive eyes the repetition of human cycles and the illusion of constant novelty. Let us go to Ecclesiastes chapter 1, from verse 2 to verse 11. I said, "Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Generation goes, generation comes. The sun rises, the sun sets, and hurries back to the place from which it arose. Rivers run to the sea, and the sea is never full. What has been is what will be. What has been done is what will be done. There is nothing truly new under the sun. And even what seems new to the eyes of those who live has already existed but was forgotten." What I wanted to show here, wise man, is that life without an axis is repetition. it is consumption without fullness. It is haste without direction. And though we try to fill the eyes and ears, they are never fully satisfied. But I did not stop there. In Ecclesiastes chapter 2 from verse 18 to verse 26, I deepened this diagnosis. And I wrote as one who tried everything: pleasure, wisdom, wealth, grand work, servants, songs, and even laughter. And yet, I said, I hated all the labor with which I toiled under the sun, because I would have to leave it to the one who comes after me, and who guarantees he will be wise or foolish. Thus I nearly despaired of all the labor with which I had labored, for there is one who toils with wisdom, knowledge, and skill, but leaves his portion to another. This also is vanity and a great evil. However, I also affirmed that there is a gift that comes from God, the gift of eating, drinking, and enjoying the good in all one's work. This, yes, this is the Lord's gift. What I wanted to teach here is that without the gift of enjoyment, all effort becomes punishment. But when the God-fearing man aligns with purpose, even the simplest labor gains a flavor that cannot be bought. Now, let us go together to Proverbs chapter 10 from verse 4 to verse 7. I wrote, "Idle hands make poor, but diligent hands enrich. He who gathers in summer is a prudent son, but he who sleeps during harvest brings shame to his family. Blessings crown the head of the righteous, but the mouth of the wicked hides violence. The memory of the righteous will be a blessing, but the name of the wicked will rot. See, wise man, I never condemned work or effort. On the contrary, diligence is a path to honor. But there is a difference between working with purpose and drowning in goals that do not stand in eternity. Righteousness is not merely ethical behavior, it is coherence with the source. When you plant what has the weight of truth, the harvest is blessed and enduring. But when you chase the wind, the fruit evaporates in your hands." I want to read now a passage from the Song of Songs, chapter 3, from verse 1 to verse 4. I wrote there in poetic form about the intense search every soul experiences when it loses its rest. I said, "At night on my bed, I sought the one whom my soul loves. I sought him and did not find him. I rose and went through the streets and squares of the city. I searched for him, and I did not find him. I asked the watchman, and shortly after passing them, I found the one whom my soul loves, and I would not let him go." What I wanted to express here is the silent cry of an entire generation that seeks rest in the wrong places, in endless scrolling, in crowded schedules, but only finds peace when it finds the Lord. God-fearing man, you can walk all the outward paths, but until your soul reunites with the one who created it, every search will feel like a dark night. And now, wise man, I need you to grasp something fundamental. The problem is not that we have goals, responsibilities, or objectives to fulfill, but the emptiness that dwells behind all of this when our heart has no true why. The mind may be quick, the calendar may be full, results may even appear, but if your spirit is disconnected from the source, everything starts to weigh. When I wrote that work becomes vanity, I did not mean that work is evil in itself, but that without purpose even the noblest effort becomes a disproportionate burden. The God-fearing man understands that productivity is not merely delivering results. It is having spiritual direction to know what is worth doing and what only drains energy. Many are afraid to admit it, but much of the anxiety they feel today comes exactly from this performance logic without an axis. As psychiatrist Viktor Frankl wrote, whose wisdom echoes what I revealed in Ecclesiastes, the human being can endure almost any pain, provided he has a meaning to endure it. But when meaning is lost, even small weights become unbearable. And see, God-fearing man, if you do not stop to realign your motivation, your ethics, and your vision of service, you will end up enslaved by others' goals, empty comparisons, and a constant fear of always being late, even if you are ahead of many. Therefore, it is necessary to redefine what you call success. I tell you, wise man, success is not speed, it is not applause, it is not fame, it is not accumulation. Success is coherence. It is when your motivation is aligned with the fear of the Lord, your ethics are non-negotiable, and what you produce truly serves others with faithfulness. This is the kind of success that remains when the wind blows, when the cycle turns, when the seasons change. coherence. That indeed is true prosperity. And it is born when the God-fearing man does not seek recognition first, but direction. Now think with me. Your attention has been stolen every day, quietly. And perhaps you have not even noticed. The modern economy has already understood that our attention is the most precious good. And that is precisely why everything around you screams for it. Notifications, short videos, instant messages, constant comparisons. And the problem is not merely that these distractions exist, but that they empty what truly matters. When everything is stimulus, nothing has meaning anymore. And the wise man needs to wake up to this stealthy deception. For what entertains you today may very well be undermining your peace, your clarity, and your deepest productivity. Attention is a spiritual resource. Yes, spiritual. What you choose to focus on feeds your soul. What you contemplate daily shapes your heart. And that is why wisdom requires sobriety. It is not merely about uninstalling an app or doing a digital detox, but about deciding with reverence what deserves your presence and what must be silenced. The God-fearing man begins to prosper when he learns to filter, to prioritize, and to refuse to live at the mercy of algorithms. True productivity is born from focusing on what has the weight of eternity and not on what simply fills time. And see, it is not about living an isolated or anti-technological life, but about being selective with what you allow into your inner temple. Because, wise man, every decision of attention is also a decision of devotion. That which occupies your eyes and ears will also occupy your mind, your emotions, and in time, your choices. And when everything around you seems urgent, wisdom is needed to discern what is essential. The fear of the Lord organizes even your habits of consuming content, your conversations, your stray thoughts, for he knows that the human heart is like a garden. It flourishes or becomes sick, depending on what is planted daily. Let us continue, because I want to show you now how planning, when aligned with the fear of the Lord, gains a completely new weight. And I want you to understand that planning is not unbelief. It is organized faith. The God-fearing man does not let life run loose. He seeks discernment for every step. I will show you this with a reading that invites us to present every plan before God and trust that He will establish our steps. So then, now I want to read with you a sequence that leads us to this understanding of planning under fear, of steps sustained by an eternal perspective and not merely by momentary desire. Let us open the word in Proverbs chapter 16 from verse 1 to verse 9. In this passage I revealed that to man belong the plans of the heart, but the right answer comes from the Lord. And more, all a man's ways seem pure to him, but it is the Lord who weighs the spirit. What I am teaching here is that even when you think you are doing everything right, it is still necessary to submit your intentions to the divine scrutiny. I continued saying that we must commit to the Lord all our works, and thus the plans will succeed. Because see, the Lord has made everything for a purpose, even the wicked for the day of judgment. This means that nothing escapes divine sovereignty, and all planning that ignores this truth walks toward deviation. And then I concluded this sequence by saying that the heart of man charts his path, but the Lord directs his steps. Notice the beauty of this tension. You are not called to live passively without thinking or deciding. But you must also not trust in your own ability as if you were self-sufficient. The wise man learns to move with responsibility and with reverence. He knows that planning is part of his mission, but recognizing God's governance over the results is part of his faith. And when this awareness dwells in the heart, the steps gain firmness even in the face of uncertainty. I would like to go now to a psalm written by my father David, which reveals the importance of managing time well, of looking at the brevity of life with seriousness and discernment. Let us go together to Psalm 90, from verse 12 to verse 17. There my father cried, "Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom." He was saying that wisdom begins when we recognize that time is finite, that days are limited, and that life needs focus. Continuing, he asks, "Turn to us, Lord. How long? Have compassion on your servants." indicating that waiting without the presence of God becomes unbearable, and that only mercy renews the spirit. Soon after he pleads, "Satisfy us in the morning with your loyal love, so we may sing for joy all our days." See that true satisfaction does not come from what we achieve, but from the presence that accompanies us. And then he concludes by asking, "Establish the work of our hands for us. Yes, confirm the work of our hands." This is very profound, God-fearing man, for it reveals that all effort can be vain if it is not sealed by God. Planning is necessary, but presenting these plans before the Almighty is what gives permanence. Because without Him, even the tallest castles collapse, but with Him, even the simplest work gains eternity. There is something that often troubles the heart of the God-fearing man. It is the silent doubt that arises when everything seems to be done correctly, yet the results have not arrived. The question that echoes is, "And if I do not prosper, even believing, even obeying?" This fear, though not confessed out loud, often governs decisions, takes away peace, and places undue weight on the shoulders. But I tell you, true faith is not measured only by the absence of fear, but by the courage to continue even with it present. And more, to prosper is not the same as to accumulate. To prosper is to bear fruit with coherence. It is to see work become mission, resources become instruments, and rest become a sign of trust. When the fear of the Lord structures the heart, the fear of failing loses its power, because value is not in the world's applause, but in faithfulness before God. Wise man, it is necessary to understand that there is a great difference between performance and vocation, between chasing the wind and walking with purpose. A man may produce much and still be empty. He may win applause and still be lost inside. But when the heart finds its axis, even difficult days gain meaning. To work is not only to produce, it is to cooperate with God in caring for creation. To lead is not only to decide, it is to serve with responsibility. And to prosper in the light of wisdom is to manage with excellence what has been entrusted. What I'm telling you is simple, but profound. It is not the result that defines the value of your effort. It is the alignment with the eternal purpose that makes your sweat a seed of eternity. And in this same line, I want to remind you of something essential. Attention is a spiritual resource, perhaps the most neglected in the modern age. Never has there been so much information offered, so much visual stimulus, so many invitations to consumption, and at the same time, so much distraction and weariness. The attention economy is not just a cultural phenomenon, it is a spiritual battle, because what you feed your eyes and ears with shapes your inner being. And without realizing it, the God-fearing man may find himself drained, without energy for what truly matters. I ask you, what has taken your focus? What has occupied your thoughts in idle hours? That which governs your attention also governs your decisions. If you understand this, then you will see that limiting the superfluous is an act of wisdom, not of deprivation. When you say no to excess, you are saying yes to what has the weight of eternity. That is why many live busy, but are not being productive. They live full of commitments, but empty of purpose. The wise man is not measured by the number of tasks he executes, but by the priority he gives to what truly matters. It is better to do less but with fear and integrity than to do much without direction. Sobriety in these current days is not weakness, it is strength. Because it requires courage to swim against the current, to resist the appeal of the immediate, and to live with reverence in every decision. And here, I want to propose a turning point. Stop measuring your life only by goals achieved and start asking, what of all this remains? What will endure time? What carries value before God? What truly serves the people around you? When the fear of the Lord becomes the center, the criteria change. Hurry gives way to prudence. Comparison loses strength, and productivity becomes the consequence of a well-positioned life. This is freedom. This is rest. Not the rest of inactivity, but the rest of one who knows he is on the right path, even when the rhythm demands effort. Now, wise man. I want you to pause with me. Take a deep breath. Silence the noises for a moment. Just close your eyes for a few seconds if you can, and talk to God about what weighs on you today. If there is anxiety, name it. If there is frustration, surrender it. If there is weariness, confess it. And if there is gratitude, share it. Do not let this moment pass without creating real communion with the Lord. And if you feel it in your heart, in the comments of this video, share an experience or testimony of yours. Something that is aligned with what we talked about focus, weariness, direction, or work. You cannot imagine how much a simple account can bless another brother. This is the beauty of spiritual brotherhood. While you bless another God-fearing man, someone blesses you. The fear of the Lord reorganizes priorities. The fear of the Lord reorganizes everything. It is the starting point for all true wisdom, but it is also the axis of support for those who desire to prosper without losing their soul. Many want to separate faith and planning, spirituality and work, the Bible and financial decisions. But I tell you, there is no safe path without reverence to the Creator. The wise man understands that the fear of God is not a feeling of paralyzing fear, but a posture of honor, trust, and obedience. He realizes that his steps only gain firmness when his priorities are aligned with the will of the Lord. Because when fear occupies the center, decisions change, criteria are refined, and the heart finds a peace the world cannot offer. In this new section, I want to show you how applied wisdom, which is born from fear, transforms practical areas of life, professional purpose, resource management, and even the rest you allow yourself or not. It's all interconnected. When I built the Temple of Jerusalem, it was not just an architectural project, it was a practical expression of obedience and honor. And it is this practical wisdom that I want to share with you now. For this, we will return to the Book of Proverbs, where I gathered advice born from experience and revelation. Get ready. Let's dive together into the pillars of a life with purpose under the light of divine wisdom. Let's open the Bible in Proverbs chapter 3, starting at verse 1 and going until 12. There I counseled, "My son, do not forget my teachings, and let your heart keep my commandments, for they will prolong your life many days and give you peace." What I meant here is simple but profound. Memorize the principles, write them on your heart, not just to know what is right, but to be sustained by them when hard days come. I continued, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. Acknowledge him in all your ways, and he will make your path straight." See, God-fearing man, it's not that you shouldn't plan, but that your plan should be under his direction. Because trusting fully does not mean passivity. It means active submission. And I also said, "Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil." The fear of the Lord is a filter. It purifies intentions, refines choices, and protects from falls. I ended with a very concrete instruction. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of all your income. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine. That is, the principle is this: God honors those who honor him, and not only with resources, but with peace, direction, and lasting fruits. Very well, now let's go to the Book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 5, from verses 10 to 20. There I wrote something you need to hear carefully. Whoever loves money never has enough of it, and whoever loves abundance is never satisfied with income. This too is vanity. Wise man, what I am saying is that money was never the problem. The disordered love for it is what blinds understanding and exhausts the soul. I continued, when goods increase, so do those who consume them. And what benefit is there for the owner, except to look on with his eyes? That is, accumulating for the sake of accumulating is an illusion. It is a race without rest, which robs the joy of living. And then I made a contrast that is key for you to understand. The sleep of the laborer is sweet, whether he eats little or much, but the abundance of the rich does not allow them to sleep. Notice with me, it's not about quantity, it's about consciousness. Whoever lives with purpose sleeps in peace, but whoever serves money loses even sleep. And I concluded with a powerful promise. Here is what I have seen. It is good and fitting to eat, drink, and enjoy all the good of one's labor under the sun. All the days of life God gives to man, for this is his portion. And also everyone to whom God gives wealth and the power to enjoy it, to receive their portion and rejoice in their work. This is the gift of God. God-fearing man, do you understand? To prosper with joy and peace is a gift that comes from above, not from human strategies, but from God's blessing upon obedience. Now I want to read a more poetic passage, but no less profound. In Song of Songs, chapter 2, verses 10 to 13, I wrote, "My beloved spoke and said to me, Arise, my darling, my beautiful one, and come. For behold, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. Flowers appear on the earth. The season of singing has come, and the voice of the dove is heard in our land. See the beauty of the new season that is revealed. But notice the call, arise and come. That is, it is necessary to respond to the invitation. Many times the wise man lives as if he were still in winter, even when God has already announced spring. He clings to what has passed, to scarcity and to fear. But here I am saying, there is a new season available. There is a season of blossoming, of lightness, of renewed rest. But to access it, it takes movement, decision, spiritual sensitivity. God-fearing man, what I meant to teach with this passage is that it is not enough for God to change the seasons. You also need to rise to walk with him. Notice, the God-fearing man understands that true prosperity begins with alignment, not just of goals, but of meaning. To prosper is not a sin. It is purpose well lived. The mistake is not in abundance, but in chasing it without criteria, without foundation, without fear. Many wonder if it is lawful to grow, invest, profit, and I tell you, it is not only lawful, but desirable, as long as the foundation is integrity. When I advised to honor the Lord with the first fruits, I was saying, consecrate the origin of your gains. Establish the eternal as Lord of your decisions before the numbers grow. Because if the foundation is crooked, the house collapses. The wise man is the one who understands that profit is fruit, not idol, and that wealth without righteousness is a golden prison, not real freedom. See well, this wisdom needs to touch concrete decisions. I speak to you who lead a business, who set prices, choose suppliers, lead a team. Your reference must be justice, not haste, excellence, not blind ambition. When wisdom governs, you do not accept dubious partnerships nor dishonest deals. What seems faster, more profitable, may cost much more later. The God-fearing man does not give up peace for a contract. He prefers to wait but remain with a clean conscience. And do you know what happens? God honors. He sustains, expands, multiplies, because he sees the heart of the one who acts with integrity. Biblical prosperity is not just high revenue. It is joyful harvest. It is enduring fruit. It is gain with purpose. And this begins with fear and is expressed in each practical choice of daily life. Now think with me about something even deeper. Rest. Yes, rest is a form of faith. It seems contradictory, I know, in a world that demands speed, urgency, and constant movement. But the wise man learns that to stop is to trust. It is to believe that the world does not depend only on his strength, that results are not sustained only by his effort. There are many who accumulate, but cannot rest. They live tired, restless, overwhelmed. The mind does not quiet, the heart finds no relief, because they place their trust in performance, not in God's care. And I tell you, this is not the path of wisdom. Those who fear the Lord learn to rest, not out of laziness, but out of trust. Out of knowing that there is a God who watches, provides, and sustains even when you rest. Biblical rest is not inertia. It is management of limits. It is knowing when to stop, when to recalibrate, when to be silent. I taught there is a time for everything, and that includes the time to lay your head down and trust. The God-fearing man sets margins. He does not let himself be governed by the urgent. He manages his schedule, his energy, his focus. And see that this too is spirituality. because honoring the Lord with wealth also includes honoring him with time. There is a tyranny of always busy that many live as if it were a virtue, but in fact it is a sign of inner disorder. Rest does not steal productivity, it renews. And a rested heart sees better, chooses better, serves better. The peace that comes from the fear of the Lord produces clarity, and clarity generates fruits deeper than blind rush. And how to keep this applied wisdom in daily life. It begins with a daily decision to choose what has weight of eternity. Most of the distractions that today steal your energy, your attention, your serenity, are the fruit of an excess that does not edify. Too much stimulus, too little purpose. The wise man filters. He does not give himself to everything that is urgent, noisy, seductive. He sets limits for his time, for his conversations, for his consumption. It is not rigidity, it is reverence. He knows that his attention is a spiritual resource and does not waste it on what does not build. There are silent choices that shape destinies, like what you decide to watch, listen to, with whom you dialogue. And when fear is present, every detail is taken into account with sobriety. Notice, instant gratification is a trap for modern man. Everything today is made to accelerate, to keep you clicking, buying, running. But this acceleration does not bring depth. It robs presence, focus, discernment. And here is a secret I learned over time. What really matters never comes quickly. Deep relationships, consolidated reputation, businesses with roots. All this requires time and patience. The God-fearing man learns to say no to the superficial, to say yes to what remains. He does not chase the wind. He walks with purpose. This requires sobriety, vigilance, but the fruits are harvests that are worth a lifetime. It is better to sow with criteria than to reap with regret. I want you to grasp the depth and relevance of my last words. If you desire to master the act of sowing with ever greater discernment and to conquer the epic life promised by God to every diligent man who fears the Lord, do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. This content is made to bless and edify you. Another crucial point is how fear reorganizes your desires. See, it's not about repressing wants, but about purifying them, about placing each desire under the filter of the eternal, of what truly pleases God. Many live frustrated because they desire what was never meant to be theirs, or because they placed all their value in what has no lasting worth. The wise man learns to desire what is just, what is good, what builds, and when his desires are aligned with God's heart, he finds peace even before the answer comes. Because it's not the achievement that brings fulfillment, it's the alignment with what endures. And this alignment is born from fear. Finally, I want you to remember something important. Practical wisdom is not theory. It is daily decision. And the fear of the Lord is the filter that transforms ordinary choices into eternal seeds. From the way you treat a client to how you manage your rest, everything is spiritual. Everything can be an altar. The man who fears God knows that his prosperity is not only a destination, it is a journey. And this journey is paved with obedience, discernment, and trust. When you live this way, heaven becomes involved in your routine, and God's blessing not only reaches you, it accompanies you. Very well. Now I want to open with you the Book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, starting at verse 1 through 13. There I declared something that remains true to this day. To everything there is a proper season, a specific time for every purpose under heaven. And what I wanted to teach here is that wisdom does not deny the seasons, but acknowledges them. There is a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to build and a time to pause. If a man tries to control time, he loses himself. But if he discerns the times, he finds himself. I observed everything God does and realized that he made everything beautiful in its own time. He placed eternity in the human heart, even though man cannot fully comprehend the divine work. And that is why I concluded, nothing is better for a person than to rejoice and to do good while living. Every gift God grants us, the food, the work, the bonds, is a present and must be lived with gratitude, with sobriety, with fear. The wise man understands this, and that's why he does not live comparing his season with another's, nor trying to rush what God is still shaping. Very well then. Now I want to read with you in Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 11 through 18. These words were not mine, but from the Lord, given through Moses, and I consider them fundamental for those who wish to live true prosperity. Listen carefully. Be careful not to forget the Lord your God, failing to keep his commands, his ordinances, and his decrees. When you have eaten and are satisfied, when you have built good houses and live in them, when your herds multiply and your silver and gold increase, do not let your heart become proud. The warning here is clear. Blessing can become a snare if the heart forgets the source. Many, when prospering, attribute success to their own strength and say, "It was my power, my skill that brought me this wealth." But God warns, "Remember the Lord, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth, confirming the covenant he swore to your ancestors." What the Lord is teaching here is that prosperity without spiritual memory turns into pride, and pride always precedes ruin. The man who fears God prospers with humility. He knows where his strength comes from, and so he returns honor, returns gratitude, returns purpose to what he receives. This is the secret to a life that flourishes and endures. When the soul bows before God, desires are reorganized, the heart gains a new standard for making decisions, and what once was driven by haste, comparison, or fear is now guided by fear, purpose, and peace. The wise man understands that true prosperity is not how much one possesses, but how much what one possesses serves an eternal purpose. And this is where many go astray, because they confuse faith with passivity, or spirituality with negligence. The fear of the Lord is not an escape from reality, it is the firmest foundation to face it with wisdom and authority. When you bow before God, you rise before life. And when I say prosperity needs purpose, I am not just speaking of big projects. I am speaking of daily choices, small businesses, the way you lead your team, or how you conduct a sale. The man who fears God does not close his eyes to the market. He opens them with more discernment. He does not flee from profitability. He seeks it with ethics. He does not avoid profit, but he does not make it an idol. He knows that price and value are not the same, that haste and diligence are not synonyms, and that the shortcut may cost more than the long road with faithfulness. Therefore, in everything he does, he asks, does this honor God? Does this build lives? Does this respect the principles of the Word? But there is also a point neglected by many: rest. And here lies one of the greatest tests of faith of our time, because we live in a generation that measures worth by productivity, that confuses movement with progress, and that thinks stopping is losing. But rest is a spiritual declaration of trust. It is as if we were saying, "Lord, I did my part. Now you govern what is beyond me." There is a kind of rest that does not come from leisure, but from a clean conscience, from maintained integrity, from the certainty that we did not sell our soul in exchange for goals. The wise man knows when it is time to plant, and knows when it is time to let the soil rest. This rest is not synonymous with laziness, but with obedience to God's rhythm. He created us with limits, and limits are not weaknesses, they are protections. When we exceed these limits too much, we grow sick inside, and even with money, success, or applause, we feel empty. True rest is born from a heart that trusts, that works diligently, but sleeps in peace, because it knows that God is in control. Resting is an act of spiritual resistance against the tyranny of urgency, against the dictatorship of performance, against the illusion that everything depends on us. The man who fears God works with excellence, but knows that it is the Lord who sustains all things. And if you look closely at your own routine, you may realize that what has been governing your decisions is not the Spirit, but anxiety, others' goals, immediate results, the feeling of falling behind. And that is why I must tell you, it is not you who should be governed by your desires. It is you who must govern what you desire. Many potentials are being wasted, not for lack of capacity, but for lack of discernment, for not choosing a greater good, something that serves as a compass amid the chaos. And that greater good, that axis, that plumb line, is the fear of the Lord. What governs you? What measures your success? What guides your choices? If you don't have these answers clearly, then any stimulus can drag you, any offer can seduce you, any comparison can paralyze you. But the wise man always asks, does this bring me closer to my calling? Does this build or merely fill the void? He knows that vocation is not only what we do to earn money, it is what we do with what we earn. He knows that stewardship is not only about managing, it is about consecrating. And he understands that relationship is not just coexistence, it is covenant. Therefore, he decides with weight, lives with discernment, loves with intention. When you choose to organize life from the fear of God, you begin to see three great pillars that support all true prosperity. First, vocation, that is, your work as a calling, as a response to the purpose God gave you. Second, stewardship, the resources that pass through your hands as instruments to serve, build, expand the kingdom. And third, covenant, the bonds you cultivate with faithfulness, truth, and responsibility, because relationships are a field of harvest and also of testing. The man who fears God does not treat any of these areas lightly. He understands that in them lies the essence of his practical life with the Lord. And if today you feel that you have lost this alignment, that you are living on autopilot, that money has been consuming you more than serving you, that relationships are fragile or that work has lost its shine, return to the axis. Return to the fear of the Lord. This does not mean that everything will change in one day, but it means that from now on your decisions begin to carry weight. Your words begin to have purpose. Your choices begin to produce eternal fruits. True prosperity begins when a man decides to stop being guided by appearance, to be guided by presence. And it is this fear, this respect, this reverence, but that reorganizes all priorities. Finitude without panic. There is a limit that no man can avoid: time. It cannot be bought, extended, or paused. And yet, so many live as if they were eternal, as if the urgency of life could be ignored, as if death were a distant, irrelevant theme. But the wise man, the man who fears God, he looks at finitude with reverence, not with fear, but with clarity. He knows he was not created to run without direction, nor to waste his strength on empty conquests. He understands that the end is not panic. It is the reminder that only what remains is worth it. When the wise man wakes up, he does not live only for today. He lives today with his eyes on eternity. He does not measure his prosperity by the balance in the bank or by the applause of the public, but by the impact his choices will have when he is no longer here. He understands that legacy is not what you leave for someone, but what you build within someone. And for this, he manages with care. He decides with discernment. He loves with depth. Finitude does not paralyze him. It awakens him. I would like to read now for you Ecclesiastes chapter 9, starting in verse 7 and going until 10. And it said, "Go then, eat your bread with joy, and drink your wine with a glad heart, for God has already approved your works. Let your garments always be white, and never let oil be lacking on your head. Enjoy life with the wife whom you love, all the days of your fleeting life, which God has given you under the sun. For this is your portion in life, and in your toil, in which you labor under the sun. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. For in the grave where you are going, there is neither work, nor planning, nor knowledge, nor wisdom." What I meant to teach with these words, man who fears God, was that the awareness of brevity should lead you to diligence, to legitimate joy, to care for relationships. If life is a breath, let us at least breathe with strength, with faith, and with faithfulness. I will now go back a few pages to Proverbs chapter 27, verses 23 to 27. There I counseled, "Know well the condition of your flocks, and pay attention to your herds, for riches do not last forever, nor does a crown endure to all generations. When the hay is removed and new growth appears, and the grasses of the hills are gathered in, The lambs will provide your clothing, and the goats the price of a field. You will have plenty of goat's milk to feed you, your household, and your servant girls. What I meant was clear. Manage carefully what sustains your household. Know in depth your responsibility. Do not live distracted with what feeds no one. Finitude is not an excuse for hurry. It is a call for prudence. Now, wise man, I also want you to hear what I wrote in the Song of Songs, chapter 4, verses 12 to 16. It says, "You are a garden locked up, my sister, my bride. You are a spring enclosed, a sealed fountain. Your plants are an orchard of pomegranates with choice fruits, with henna and nard and saffron, calamus and cinnamon, with every kind of incense tree, myrrh and aloes, and all the finest spices. You are a garden fountain, a well of flowing water streaming down from Lebanon. Awake, north wind, and come, south wind. Blow on my garden, that its fragrance may spread abroad. Let my beloved come into his garden and taste its choice fruits." What I was teaching here, man who fears God, is that love, true love, is like a garden that must be guarded, cultivated, protected. It is part of the legacy, it is part of prosperity, and it is part of eternity. Man who fears God, I know that sometimes you look around and feel as if you were left behind, as if others have already achieved what you are still struggling to conquer, as if your story is delayed. And this silent comparison, this feeling of being behind, he often steals your peace. But let me remind you of something essential. The legacy you build is not made of displayed trophies, but of faithful habits, of daily integrity, of silent choices that heaven observes carefully. What remains is not what the world applauds, but what God recognizes as faithfulness. The wise man does not seek to appear prosperous, he seeks to be found faithful. There is a pain that must be acknowledged, the shame of not having reached another's standard. But I tell you, man who fears God, the most precious harvest is not in visibility, it is in consistency. What you build in secret, in prudence, in the care of your home, in your commitments, in caring for those under your responsibility. All this is part of your legacy. You do not need to announce every step. You only need to remain. For what is done with constancy, with reverence, with wisdom, sooner or later bears fruit. And God, He sees. True prosperity does not exclude relationships, it includes them. The love that comes from the Lord is not disposable, it is not unstable, it is not conditional. It is like that garden I mentioned earlier, something that is cultivated, that is guarded, that is watered with truth. Wise man, I know that relationships have not always been your strength. Perhaps you got lost in shallow relations, or even were disappointed. But I want to tell you that healthy bonds are part of your inheritance. They are part of the purpose God wrote for your story. Do not treat them as secondary, and do not be deceived into thinking that relational prosperity is something reserved only for the married or those living in ideal circumstances. I never said that. Being single is not synonymous with being incomplete. Being married is no guarantee of peace. What defines the prosperity of your relationships is not the status. It is faithfulness in the role you occupy today. If you are single, be upright in your time of waiting. If you are married, be faithful in your commitment. What matters is that you understand. The way you treat the people God placed by your side, this too will be weighed on the scales of eternity. Finitude, man who fears God, should remind us of the importance of lucid decisions in uncertain times. Because notice, if everything is unstable, if tomorrow is not guaranteed, then each choice today carries greater weight. And that is exactly why you cannot live paralyzed. Many say, I will not invest in this now because I do not know what will happen. I will not give myself to this because I may be frustrated. But I tell you, true faith perseveres even in uncertain soil. The wise man sows, even without guarantees. And I ask you, what keeps you from casting the good seed today? Fear, comparison, weariness. All of this is understandable, but not definitive. You do not need certainty to be faithful. You only need to decide that you will sow what is good, what is just, and what pleases the Lord. Sow your honesty, even if no one sees. Sow your dedication at work, even if the fruits take time. Sow care for your home, even if it seems small. because in due time that God brings the harvest. Do not paralyze your life because of the fog. Walk by faith. The decisions that withstand time are not the fastest. They are the most rooted. And for this, wise man, you need criteria. You need to look at each step and ask, does this glorify God? Is this aligned with the fear of the Lord? If the answer is no, do not proceed, because haste may seem efficient, but it does not sustain a purposeful life. Choose faithfulness over speed, truth over appearance, people over numbers. This is wisdom. This is fear. See, what I am trying to teach you here is that finitude is not your enemy, it is your ally. It is the constant reminder that you have no time to waste on what does not remain, that you cannot spend your energy on what does not edify, on what does not bear fruit. Death, when faced with wisdom, does not generate despair. It generates sacred urgency. You are not here to merely survive. You are here to leave marks, to bear fruit, to build something that speaks even after you are gone. And this begins today. Now let me read for you Ecclesiastes chapter 11, starting from verse 1 to 6. There I taught, cast your bread upon the waters, for after many days you will find it again. This image, as poetic as it is practical, speaks of generosity and sowing in uncertain times. I was saying, do not wait for the perfect scenario. Do not freeze in fear of what might go wrong. Continue. Give portions to 7, yes, to 8, for you do not know what disaster may come upon the land. I was encouraging you to be prudent but not withdrawn, to be wise but not inert. Life has risks, but faith has foundations. Continuing the reading. If the clouds are full of water, they will pour rain upon the earth, and whether a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where it falls, there it will lie. Man who fears God, I was reminding that there are things that are not in our control. Time, chance, cycles. But the next verse is key. Whoever watches the wind will not plant, and whoever looks at the clouds will not reap. That is, whoever waits for guarantees loses the opportunity to act. I exhort you as a father, do not live only watching the winds of doubt. Sow with faith, even when the sky seems cloudy. And I go on saying, just as you do not know the path of the wind, nor how bones are formed in the womb of a pregnant woman, so you do not understand the works of God, who does all things. I acknowledge the limitation of our understanding, and at the same time I point to divine sovereignty. God is acting even when you do not understand, even when the scenario does not seem favorable. Therefore, wise man, sow your seed in the morning, and in the afternoon do not let your hand be idle, because you do not know which seed will prosper, whether this one or that one, or whether both will be equally good. This is the lifestyle I teach, diligent, constant, and trusting in the providence of the Most High. And there is still something my father David wrote, which echoes powerfully in this context. I will now read Psalm 37 from verse 1 to 11. He said, do not fret because of evil men, nor be envious of those who practice injustice, for they will soon wither like grass and fade like the green herb. See, there is a constant temptation to look at those who prosper without fear and become unsettled. But my father teaches you, trust in the Lord and do good, dwell in the land and feed on truth. He does not say to flee from the world. He says to dwell with faithfulness, with integrity. And he continues, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will grant you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will act. My father David was saying that security, peace, and true prosperity do not come from haste, but from trust. He will make your righteousness shine like the light, and your justice like the noonday sun. Rest in the Lord and wait for him with patience. Do not be disturbed by the success of others, nor by those who plot evil. And then he seals with wisdom. Let go of anger, abandon fury, do not be irritated, it only leads to evil. For evildoers will be cut off, but those who hope in the Lord will inherit the land. God-fearing man, this inheritance is yours, not by force, not by appearance, but by perseverance and fear. There is something many forget in times of hurry and comparison. It is better to sow with consistency than to run without direction. God-fearing man, The legacy that remains does not arise from accumulation, but from faithfulness in small steps. The anxiety of having more, arriving first, showing results, often only covers the fear of not being enough. But what I teach you here is that legacy is not written with showcase conquests. It is formed with constancy, care, and fear in each decision. There is honor in continuing without an audience. There is wisdom in persevering, even when no one is applauding. The harvest wise man does not respond to haste, but to patience. You know, one of the quietest pains is the feeling that everyone is prospering except me. But I tell you, this comparison steals your peace and distorts the truth. It is not about running to catch up with another, but about walking in faithfulness on the trail God entrusted to you. It is easy to measure success by dollars or followers. Hard is to measure the quality of your seeds, of your relationships, of the peace in your home. What I teach you is this: what counts is not how much you have, but how much of your life honors God. And this includes care with resources, with time, with those who depend on you. The wise man manages, even when it seems little. And about bonds, there is a dangerous mistake to think that prosperity is only assets, but love, respect, and faithfulness are also goods, and valuable goods. What good is it to gain the world if the ties around you are corroded by negligence? The God-fearing man understands that relationships require cultivation, like a garden that needs pruning, watering, and protection. The song I wrote speaks of a closed, protected garden. And this is the perfect image for relationships, a sacred space where one enters with reverence. If you are married, cultivate with honor. If you are single, live with dignity. In any state, value bonds with fear. Many hope to find peace upon reaching a certain goal, but that peace never comes, because it is not the destination that brings rest, it is the way you walk. Uncertainty about the future can be paralyzing, but it does not have to be. The truth is that life will always have risks, but the wise man sows anyway. He understands that the harvest does not come only from strength, but from faithfulness. The anxiety for others' approval, the unrestrained search for immediate security, all this generates weariness. But when you choose to obey, to trust, and to remain, there is a peace that surpasses understanding. You do not control everything, but you can govern yourself. Finally, God-fearing man, remember this: there are decisions that withstand time, and usually they are those made in silence, with prayer, with fear. It is not about choosing the quickest path, but the most faithful. It is not about the quantity of achievements, but the truth within them. The world exalts numbers, God observes motivations. When you decide to place faithfulness above haste, integrity above appearance, and people above performance, then you are building something that resists fire, time, and storms. This is the seal of the wise man. He does not live to impress, he lives to remain. Wise man. Now that we have walked through so much counsel, pause for a moment. Close your eyes if you can, and allow what you heard to descend from understanding to the heart. Let this not be just another message, but a living seed, watered with prayer and discernment. For you who have come this far, I invite you now to make a silent prayer, only between you and the Lord. Surrender your priorities, the fears that still weigh, the dreams you fear you will not fulfill. Place everything before Him. And finish this moment of communion by writing in the comments, "I am a man moved by faithfulness." Write this as a declaration of your commitment to your Christian journey, and I will reply acknowledging you. Together we are building a network of communion that is silent yet powerful. Wisdom does not grow in isolation. It is strengthened when it is shared. The purpose that rests. You have heard many words on this journey, but if you need to summarize everything in a single principle, let it be this: the fear of the Lord reorganizes everything. Repetition wearies, uncertainty weighs. Death reminds us of limits, but fear restores the axis. It turns work into vocation, resources into stewardship, and bonds into covenant. It places the eternal at the center of the everyday and teaches us that true prosperity is to remain in what has the weight of eternity. As I said at the end of Ecclesiastes, of all that has been heard, the sum is this: fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of every man. There is nothing above this, and if you are listening attentively, and each word has found a place in your heart, live from them. Do not wait for tomorrow. Do not wait for everything to be clear. Start with what you have. Take a step, reflect, adjust, and continue. Wisdom is not a destination. It is a constant trail marked by fear, coherence, and truth. Practice what you heard today. At work, be diligent with integrity. In planning, take into account what remains. In relationships, cultivate as one who guards a sacred garden. I will be here to continue this journey with you. In every new counsel, always with reading, reflection, and prayer. This is the path of wise men and of men who fear God. And if this walk made sense, like, comment, subscribe, and share with someone who also needs to reorganize their priorities. Until the next meeting.